Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. As you can see, it's a little bit different today. We have a different person today. We have Ben Maxwell on here today. He's agreed to step in and help me out with this podcast today. And we also want to talk about, I don't know, Paul's busy right now, and we're waiting on Jason. We're hoping Jason will jump in here in the middle of this. But we decided not to wait on him any longer. So the first thing I want to take care of is business. Terry Christensen, who has Terry Christensen's Terry Sensies, has agreed to sponsor our broadcast. And we're very grateful to her for doing that. You can get many things from her. I don't want to sound like a salesman because she didn't want us to. But here's a warmer that has the 49ers on it, and it kind of got a manly smell to it. It's called something Rush, and it smells like you would on your body wash if you would go on the shower. And the bundle I bought also came with this little thing for the wall, but my wife, I don't know where I'm going to put that because she's got one of these in every room in my house. And so we'll see how that goes.
Dean,
Terry,
can you get those in Dean? Can you get those in Hawkeye apparel there?
Pardon?
The Cincy things you just showed for the Niners. Can you get those in Hawkeye?
No. You have to get them at her website, and I'm going to show you guys right now how to get there. I wish I could keep this up for the whole broadcast. I will continually throw it up there. Throughout, but it's going to be tough. We were planning on doing this a different way today, and where are we at? There we go. Okay. Can you guys see this? Okay. This is Terry's website for her Sensi. You need to go to that exact address the way it is typed, because we've tried it a couple different ways, and this is the only way it gets to her website. I'm going to hold it there for a couple of seconds longer. Alrighty. Okay. I just got a text message from Terry. She doesn't think Jason's coming. Okay. So I'm going to put that down and I'll bring it back up later in the show. So that we can do Terry's Sensies. But I've ordered from her. Paul has ordered from her. We've all ordered stuff from her, and it gets here. I ordered these on Monday or Tuesday from her, and I had them in my mailbox on Thursday. So that is really, really cool. All right. Okay. So we want to get started today. Talking about the Big Ten. The Big Ten kicks off its season this weekend with 2 Big Ten games going on. We've got Northwestern and who we playing? I forgot.
Nebraska.
Nebraska in Ireland. And I believe that's like a 7:30, 6:30 kickoff here in California.
It's 11:30 Central Time, so I think it'd probably be what?
Oh, okay, 9:30 my time. Okay, yeah. I got confused because when I pulled up the time, it showed. I guess it actually showed my time and not the local time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and then not too long after that, Wyoming at Illinois kickoff, and we'll talk about those 2 games in a little bit. But we kind of wanted to have this show dedicated to our Big Ten predictions, how we think the teams will finish, and who wins the East, like we don't already know, and the West, and just see how those things will go today for us. So Ben, do you want to start with the West and just talk about how you see the West shaping up a little bit, and I'll jump in as needed and when I can.
Yeah, absolutely, Dean. You know, I mean, if I were to get my proverbial crystal ball out here, I think honestly you're going to have 3 players in the West this year. That being the Hawks, not being a homer, but I think they got a chance. Wisconsin, obviously, and Purdue. Aiden O'Connell, I think, is a very, very tough quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback in the Big Ten, either division. And, you know, he's got 2 former Iowa targets to to throw to now, and Tyrone Tracy, and now Charlie Jones. And obviously Charlie Jones is a pretty phenomenal return man. So I think Purdue is going to be tough. Wisconsin is always, Wisconsin. They're going to be tough. They're going to get 8 wins. They're going to get their 9 wins. They're going to ground the ball out, Paul Chris style. But man, I tell you, I mean, I like the Hawks this year. Obviously, the the pink elephant in the room, so to speak, is Brian being the OC now, and this new revamped offense, and how Petrus is going to perform in that new offense. But I'm here knee deep in Nebraska country in Omaha, and but around these parts there are quite a few Hawkeye fans, and kind of what I'm hearing at a camp is that the offense is actually not just saying they're going to do something different, not the same vanilla, spread option, or not spread option, zone read type plays. I'm hearing things like Laporta being split out, running backs in the slot, the 2 Williams brothers, or not brothers, but backs. I think they're going to be very, very solid running backs. Obviously, we got 3 Butkus, preseason finalists for the at linebacker this year, and of course the secondary is going to be pretty good. So, taking all the homer stuff out of it, I like the Hawks to win the West, and I think Purdue is going to be our biggest challenge. Honestly, after that, I don't think there's much. Nebraska has gone the all Iowa fans will remember, of course, Fred Hoiberg, the mayor at Iowa State, and how he won there with all those transfers, the 1 transfers. Well, he's tried to do that in Nebraska basketball, and it hasn't worked. And because nothing else has worked in 5 years with Scott Frost, he's kind of gone that route. I think the number of transfers they have this year is I want to say they have 18 transfers.
Yeah, they said 16 on ESPN not ESPN, but the Big Ten Network last night.
And they got a new offensive coordinator. They got Mark Whipple from Pittsburgh, who I think is a good OC, but that's just a lot of moving parts. You got a new quarterback. Adrian Martinez went down to Kansas State. He's the all-time leading offensive, player in Nebraska history. And then you got this Casey Thompson kid coming from Texas who's going to be the quarterback. So, I love to hate on Nebraska, but this ain't actually hating on them. I just don't think they're going to be there again,
Right. So yeah, you might be surprised what I've got. I went through each one of the schedules in the West, and what I have, what I came up with, what I had in my head, and what ended up on paper are 2 different things.
That usually works.
I actually went through their schedule because I thought, it'd be pretty cool to go through the schedule and actually see, what these teams actually could do with the record that they have. And so as far as Nebraska goes, though, I actually have them having a 7-5 record and 5-4 in the Big Ten, and so
Really?
that might shock some people. I think this is the year. I mean, because I'll tell you why. Whoever the quarterback is, I know they got a couple transfer quarterbacks in, and they should be pretty good. I don't know which one is going to actually end up. You live in Omaha, so you might know where the talk is for the number 1 quarterback is.
Casey Thompson, right now, Casey Thompson, the kid from Texas, is number 1. They also got Chubba Purdy from Florida State, but the rumor mill is such that Chubba's a little bit behind Casey Thompson.
Okay. So, yeah. So I figured the quarterback this year has got to be better than Adrian Martinez. And I can't remember the one that was before him.
Also Martinez, Taylor Martinez.
Yeah, but between them they racked up a lot of yards in passing, and they also threw a lot of interceptions.
Yeah,
and I remember that Iowa basically beat these guys by intercepting them. So nothing against these quarterbacks. I would love to see Adrian Martinez perform well at Kansas State. I hope he does. Because by all, he seems to be a good kid, but he also, when he went to Kansas State, he really ramrodded about the lack of talent at Nebraska and the culture there. And he wasn't too kind. And I've always thought that Nebraska had the talent. They just didn't have the coach. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I think here's the problem. And, when Scott Frost came on board, I had mixed emotions because at first I'm like, all right, here's this hot shot coach, coming in. He's the young, sexy new thing in college football, from Oregon, UCF, and all that. But then, as I took a step back and started thinking about just Big Ten football and what works in November on a 40-degree, Saturday, and Scott Frost's offense just wasn't going to work. And I told my Nebraska buddies that I'm like, when it's 40 degrees and the wind's blowing at 20 miles an hour on a November Saturday, you can't hit those receivers. You got to have tight ends, you got to have fullbacks, you got to play field position, special teams, and Nebraska just hasn't ever done that. And getting the receivers that run 4.340s to Oregon, Nike U is easy. Getting the kids that run those 4.340s down at UCF is easy because there's just a plethora of them in Florida. Mm-hmm. Getting those kids in Iowa, getting those kids in Nebraska, getting those kids in Minnesota, it doesn't happen. So you got to get your linemen, your fullbacks, and things like that. So do I think Nebraska's had talent? I think they've had some talent. I think they've had the wrong kind of talent. Like in that Wendell Robinson, who went to Kentucky last year and basically, decimated Iowa in the bowl game. He was a starting running back at Nebraska. He left, and you look at him. They had 2 NFL receivers leave, and the sons of NFL receivers, and I can't. Their names are escaping me. But when you have that kind of exodus from the program, there's talent there, but it's not being used correctly. So
right.
I think the mesh up of the offense and what they had, I don't necessarily think they didn't have talent. I just think the talent and the offensive strategies didn't mesh.
That's what I kind of thought too, is that they when I look at Adrian Martinez, I don't think he was being utilized the way he should have been utilized. I think they should have worked on using his legs more, and Scott Frost seemed bent on a passing attack more than any kind of a running attack, and using his quarterback's feet. And the same thing when they had the McCaffrey guy, who lasted a partial season there at Nebraska. He's more of a legs quarterback, using his legs, and I don't think they used him right. And I think had they used them right, I think they could have won a few more games. Those quarterbacks.
I agree with that. Luke McCaffrey left because they were going to switch him to a running back or a slot receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're just not getting guys that fit the system. You're right. So I think Casey Thompson is probably, I guess we'll see what kind of offense Whipple runs. Presumably it's something similar to what he had at Pittsburgh with Kenny Pruitt, who excelled under him, obviously, first round draft pick. We'll see if the pieces all mesh together with this whole transfer, nonsense. The biggest thing about Nebraska, I think, is that Scott Frost has just got an arrogance to him. And if you watch his interviews constantly, he is just like, if he had a dose of humility, I think he could probably be a little better. He could probably take some lessons from Kirk. But special teams, for instance, Caleb Shudak, Keith Duncan, Charlie Jones. How many games have we won almost solely on special teams and defense? Like pretty much 70% of them. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. And this is the first year that Scott Frost finally broke down and got a special teams coach. So, maybe it's sinking in, but so I guess if I had to pinpoint why Nebraska struggled, I'd probably put it at 70% coaching, not necessarily ability, but maybe just, square peg, round hole type stuff.
Okay.
30% lack of ability or lack of appropriate talent, let's put it that way. So,
all right. Yeah. Well, I had, moving on from Nebraska a little bit, because I do have them finishing 1, 2, 3, 4. I have them finishing 4th in the Big Ten, ahead of the West. ahead of Minnesota, believe it or not.
I agree with that.
Minnesota, I was actually surprised because I had Minnesota ahead of Nebraska originally. Minnesota has a tougher schedule than we think they do. And the teams in the middle, like Nebraska, Purdue, and Minnesota, are going to beat each other up this year. Plus, I think every one of them has at least an Ohio State or Michigan on their schedule, like we do. I mean, not that we don't have a tough schedule ourselves, but because we do. But here's what I'm thinking about Purdue, because this one kind of struck out at me a little bit. Purdue has a pretty favorable schedule, but yet I've got them in third place at 5-4 in the Big Ten, and 8-4 overall. And I think what I kind of looked at a little bit was who they were playing and where they were playing at the time. Like, the very first game of the season, they've got to go to Penn State. Granted, Penn State hasn't had the type of Penn State seasons the last 2 seasons, but they're fully capable of jumping up and being an elite team again. And so I've got Purdue losing that game right off the bat, because they are at Penn State. I think. No, Penn State comes to them, but I still think Penn State wins that game. And so,
that's in West Lafayette. I mean, again, I'll stand by what I said earlier. I mean, obviously James Franklin's going to put together a good team up there, and Happy Valley, and the Nittany Lions are always going to be solid and very capable of becoming better. But man, Dean, I think that Aiden O'Connell, I think he's a weapon, and thank God he didn't have David Bell this year, who decimated Iowa. But now he's got 2 former black and gold, different hue of black and gold, if you will. Receivers playing for him, and so like Aiden O'Connell to Charlie Jones, and to Tyrone Tracy. I mean, I think those guys were weapons. It just didn't get used appropriately.
Yeah, Charlie Jones is going to get his share of throws. I understand why Charlie Jones left. I certainly wish he wouldn't have, especially against a conference team like Purdue. But, I understand this guy has aspirations of playing in the NFL, and with Iowa's offense, he wasn't going to get the number of targets that he would want to get good looks for the NFL. And, I wish him the best. I just hope he has a really poor game against Iowa, drops a few balls, and
exactly
maybe one of our DBs steps in front of him and intercepts him a couple times. The thing that excites me the most, though, I'm not too worried about Charlie or Tracy, because our linebackers and defensive our DBs have all practiced against these guys. They know what they're capable of. They've run against them in practice. They know where their moves are at. They know where they're going to go. They know their strengths. They know their weaknesses, and so I think we can stop both of them. I don't. Tracy's not even listed in the top 4 wide receivers for Purdue, so I don't know where he's at in the mix. I know they want to convert him to a running back, or at least use him several times in a game as a running back situation, like a jet sweep or something, kind of like we did his freshman year at Iowa. And so, and I was really disappointed. I didn't think he'd end up going, because his overall attitude in the season, when he lost his starting job and things were going bad, he had a great attitude, great team spirit, team first mentality. And so I think that one threw me. I think both of them leaving threw me for a loop, but especially Tyrone, because I thought this guy's all about Iowa, about team first. He could, it bothers him that he lost his starting job, but I said in this another video that the coach there, Brome, he mentioned that they were going to use Tracy as a Swift Army knife. Swiss Army knife. And that's a complete dig at Iowa. He's saying Iowa didn't use him correctly, because if you remember Tyrone, he actually posted that temporarily on his Twitter account, that he goes, it's too bad you have a Swiss Army knife, and you're not using it. And so now Brome comes back with that exact comment. That's a dig at Iowa if I ever saw one.
Yeah, I guess I wish Tyrone Tracy and Charlie Jones the best of luck. Charlie Jones, I can kind of see, honestly, like even though he was the return specialist of the year last year, I mean, he was still, I think, 3 on the depth chart outside, because you got Arlen Bruce now and you got, Keegan Johnson. But back to Tyrone, I mean, obviously he's a tremendous athlete, good player. He helped us, a little bit, but when you're down the depth chart at Iowa on receiver, that probably says something. That's a little bit different than being down the depth chart at tight end, or depth chart at left tackle, right? Or even running back. We're unfortunately, Iowa has not been known to have a bountiful, group of talented receivers. And so when you're losing your job to true freshmen, that probably says something. So that Swiss Army knife comment, I mean, Tyrone Tracy was little. I don't know where he was ever going to really. I don't know what you do with him much more than the slot, honestly. But yeah. So, maybe return man, but now there's zero doubt that Charlie Jones is going to return kicks and punts for him. So yeah. And Tyrone Tracy recruited him. I know a couple former players, Caleb Shudak. I used to coach him in baseball, so I talked to him a fair amount. And Tyrone Tracy recruited Charlie Jones in essence to come to Purdue. That's how he ended up at Purdue, at least.
Yeah. I was actually pretty sure that was the case.
Yeah.
Because he came out of camp and he wasn't real happy at camp because he didn't make the 2 deeps coming out of spring camp, and it was within a week after camp ended that he was out of there. So that he and Tyrone were talking.
They're really good friends. I think they were roommates at Iowa. So
were they roommates?
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah. So in any event, I wish them best of both of luck. But to your point, Dean, I hope they have a great season, but against us,
not against Iowa.
Exactly. I hope they struggle immensely that day.
I will say this: they're probably very motivated to play well against Iowa, but the DBs are very motivated to make sure they don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Phil Parker is going to have a little crawl on him, so they're going to have some little special dialed up, I think, and Kirk for that matter. Kirk comes up so nice and genuine, but that guy's a kind of got a little inner asshole in him, I think. So I mean, I think he wants to dial that up.
Yeah, but Phil Parker though, we've lost 4 of the last 5 games to Purdue. Phil Parker's not changed up his defense, even though Purdue has thrown little wrinkles here and there at him. And so it's just Phil Parker, I think, is almost as stubborn as Kirk Ferentz. It's like, I'm going to run this defense, beat it if you can, and they did.
Well, 2 words for you, Dean. David Bell. I mean, that guy has decimated us for 3 years, so thank God he's gone.
I know. Trust me, I'm glad he's gone. I'm pretty sure that Charlie Jones and Tyrone Tracy together will not match a David Bell output for one season.
I agree.
I'm so glad that he chose to leave for the NFL a year early. I don't know if I could handle another year.
Oh, that's bad news, man. Bad news.
Yeah, but we always seem to find somebody who does that. Like the Kentucky game. Somebody who decimates us like that.
Yep.
And if I remember right, Michigan didn't use any receivers to decimate us. They just ran the ball quickly on us.
I was at that game. I went to Indianapolis and I watched that game. And when we marched that ball down that opening possession and then didn't get any points out of the deal, you just felt the energy in that stadium go. And then after that, and then after that, Harbaugh just scored. I mean, Michigan scored. Give him credit every which way possible. And then, of course, he ran up the score at the end, which was kind of a jerk move, I think. But
it was. He didn't have to, but honestly, Iowa wouldn't have run up the score. But
well, when that game, if you there's a difference between a TV and there, and I am the perpetual optimist when it comes to Iowa football. So if I'm always watching on TV, I'm like, okay, we got a shot. But if you were at that game, as soon as they scored that first score after halftime, there was no way we were coming back. The stadium was absolutely deflated. There was zero chance Iowa was
We
going to do
gave
it.
up. So the stadium gave Hawkeyes no energy.
I'll tell you what, there was probably 2-1, maybe 3-1 Iowa to Michigan fans there. And before the game, that place was rocking. It was awesome. It was a fantastic environment. And then after we didn't score the first time, the Iowa faithful hung around. But I'll tell you, once they scored that first score at the start of the second half, it was no bueno. So
yeah. I mean, they hung with Michigan for a short period of time, and then things just got out of hand quickly.
yeah.
It just seemed like once it started snowballing, it just kept rolling, and there was just no way. It's just like, at some point you resign yourself as we're not coming back now.
Oh yeah. I think if we could have if you remember that first chance to score was that halfback pass to Laporta, and Laporta like stumbled and it was overthrown a little bit. But I'm telling you, Dean, if that ball's caught, that's an entirely different game. Entirely different.
I think we'll see how all that works out. I'm optimistic that Petrus has got it figured out this year. The offensive line is better, although I got a text this morning from Chad Lysico who doesn't think Mason Richmond's going to be in the lineup right now.
Really?
He seems to see, even though the coach has played it off as a minor injury, he still hasn't practiced yet. We're a little over a week away from, I guess about 10, 11 days from kickoff. And so he's got to get out there. And, Kirk, they've got to practice full on 100% before he'll put him on the field.
Oh, yeah. I do think, I mean, obviously we want Richmond out there because he's a good player. I do think the line is considerably deeper and a little bit, obviously we were young last year. Other than Lindenbaum, we started a couple true freshmen, I think, a couple times, I believe. So I think the line will be better. One of my concerns though is I think it's Gavin Williams is hurt, I believe. One of the Williams is hurt. I can't remember.
Gavin is hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know if he showed up in pictures this week.
Good.
So he's back. Keegan Johnson is back. He showed up in pictures. Brody Breck has not showed up in pictures yet, so it doesn't appear he's back. And that kind of stinks because he was kind of my X factor this year.
Yeah. Did you watch any baseball games? You see that kid pitch?
Every time I turned into a baseball game, I watched several. He was never the pitcher, starting or relief.
Yeah.
So I wanted to watch him so bad, and then he was scheduled to be the pitcher in one of the tournament games, I think, against Michigan. And I didn't get in there until the second inning, and either he got bombed the first inning and got pulled, or they just decided not to go with him because he wasn't pitching in the second inning when I tuned in.
Well, he didn't pitch in Omaha, so we hosted the Big Ten tournament, and so I went down and watched the Hawks, and he didn't throw here at all.
Yeah, because he was scheduled to pitch one of those games, but maybe the coach just didn't feel that it was time to throw him into the fire like that.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, if you watch him on TV, that kid brings it, man. I think he hits 102 is what I understand.
Really? Yeah.
I saw him consistently at upper 90s, and I saw him touch 100. I never saw 101 or 102, but when I watched him play, but yeah, I think he throws a 102. So pretty good athlete there.
Yeah. We probably only get him for another year, and that's probably, is baseball the same as football? If you decide to go to college, you got to wait 3 years before you can go back into the draft.
So baseball, you can get drafted out of high school.
Right.
You don't, then you go to college. If you go to junior college, you can get drafted after either your freshman year or your sophomore year. If you go to a 4-year university like Iowa, then you have to wait till after your junior year, unless you're 21 years old because you got started later or something to that effect.
Right. Okay.
But that 21 is measured by some, not just 21 when the draft is, it's 21 by some other ascertained point. I don't know. So for all extents and purposes, we have him for 3 years.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's what I was wondering. And does the team that originally drafted him retain his rights or?
For a year. And so if he doesn't sign, so once he didn't sign out of high school, because I think he was drafted out of high school, that's gone now once he enrolled. If he had quit college that year prior to the preceding draft, then they would have his rights. But then it basically expires once the next draft comes around.
Okay, that sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna move on a little bit. I'll just tell you how I got the West shaping up here. I got Iowa winning the West with 2 losses.
Oh boy. Who are the losses? Michigan and who?
Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get Purdue this year. I don't know why, but I think the coaches are finally getting it, that they're tired of losing to Purdue.
And
I think
David
there's a
Bell's
motivation between the players and the coaches to beat Purdue this year, even though it's there. And so I think we get them this year. I got Wisconsin at 6-3 as second, and Purdue 5-4, and then Nebraska at 5-4. But I put Purdue ahead of Nebraska only because the overall record for the was better for Purdue. And then I got Minnesota. I can't believe I ended up with Minnesota at 4-5. I thought Minnesota, in my mind, would be a better team, but once I put it to paper in their schedule, I just couldn't see them winning some of these games. I really couldn't.
I agree. I think PJ Fleck is all chic, and charisma is only going to take you so far until you start, maybe implementing some things, and
right.
And I just don't think Minnesota's got the talent this year, and I don't think the fan base supports those guys. I mean, it's just not a fervent fan base like Iowa is, Nebraska is, Wisconsin.
But when you got the Vikings right there in town, do you really need to be following the Gophers?
Well, right. Yeah. Minneapolis is an awesome city, man. Like, I mean, there's a lot it's like Southern California. Why college football don't play out there? Why on the East Coast, Rutgers and Maryland? Because there's a million other things to do,
By the way,
in Iowa, there's nothing else to do.
So. I want to tell you something. You're talking about Southern California not following college football, which that is probably the case, but I've been to a couple of USC games at the Coliseum, sold out, packed.
Yeah.
And the USC fans are every bit into that as Iowa fans are into theirs. Okay, and then I got Illinois at 2-7, and then Northwestern 1-8. I see Illinois improving, but I think the schedule does them in.
I agree.
They improved quite a bit last year, and they're gonna look even more like a Wisconsin team this year. I predicted they would come out looking like Wisconsin, but it would take them a couple of years to build that offensive line the way they needed it and get the type of running backs he likes. What Brett Bielema is accustomed to, but make no mistake about it, he's going to make that Illinois team look like a Wisconsin team here in the future.
I agree. I think Illinois in 2-3 years is going to be a beast to fear. Yeah, Bielema is obviously going to have a very Iowa, Wisconsin prone attack.
Right.
Lots of tight ends, lots of good offensive line play. And he's in Chicago. I mean, he's recruiting Chicago. Like, you can't get those kids to come play there. That's a fertile recruiting base. And why Northwestern and Illinois and those guys aren't a little bit better, with all those athletes and all that talent right there has always kind of perplexed me. But I think Bielema would do a good job. He's a better fit than Lovie Smith, I think, for sure.
Yeah. Northwestern to me right now is kind of a hit and miss team.
Yeah.
I think we saw in 2020 when they won the Big Ten West. I think we saw that having the right quarterback can do everything for your team.
Oh yeah.
Just because he seemed to make the plays when he needed to, and you can have a good defense, which that year Northwestern had a solid defense. But I think it just shows what Iowa could do with their defense if they had the right quarterback playing for them, who could hit passes, who could use his feet to keep plays alive. And I was watching God dang, Banks playing an old on BTN, played an old Iowa game.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the things that guy could do when a play broke down. I mean, he kept drives alive.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, and they actually designed some plays for him for him to run. And I said, this 2002 team was so Kirk Ferentz like team that that year Kirk Ferentz was he and his coaches were playing the style to what they had the best, to the best of their ability, to what their players are. And now that they've gone out and recruited some players to play more like their own style, I kind of wish they'd go back to that 2002 style.
Yeah, I agree. Brad Banks was a stud. I don't think it's ever going to happen. Obviously, I think Brad Banks became a necessity by desperation,
Mhm.
because Kirk was just getting donkey stomped back and to start his tenure.
Right.
But he was fun to watch until the Orange Bowl when against USC when we got decimated. That wasn't
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. When they took that opening kickoff and ran it back for a touchdown, Iowa, did you think, man, we're on our way to this one?
yeah, exactly.
How quickly things got deflated in that game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I just I don't see how Iowa. I don't actually see how anybody in the Big Ten this year is going to beat Ohio State. I think the only team on Ohio State's schedule that could beat Ohio State is Notre Dame, first game of the season, but I don't see that happening. Not this year.
No, I agree. I think Ohio State's a juggernaut. I mean, I certainly think they'll be in the playoff this year.
Right.
I
They're
think
ranked.
Michigan down. I think Michigan State's going to be down. Penn State's I think going to be down. So yeah, I think the East for once, I think the East might be the more winnable division.
Right. Yeah. Um, Although when I went through the schedule, I ended up having Michigan at 8-1 with their only loss to Ohio State. They've got a very favorable schedule.
I agree, and I don't disagree with you record wise, but I
Mm-hmm.
think as far as a Michigan team goes, I don't think this Michigan team is going to be nearly as talented as last year's Michigan team.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we could beat Michigan this year. I just don't know if we will.
Well,
You
it's in
know.
Kinnick, so we got a shot, right? Little Kinnick
Right.
match.
That's why I'm saying we got Kennick. The only problem is we don't get a prime time game out of that because that's the best game on the schedule that day, which means Fox is going to put it at their noon game.
Yeah.
Don't they realize that they ruined it for Iowa by doing that? The
Yeah. I
games.
mean, I still remember the 11 o'clock games, and you being out in California, those had to be pretty painful for you.
Oh, you mean watching it at 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah. Yeah. That had to be awful. Yeah.
Oh, I loved it. I love
Really?
watching 9 o'clock in the morning games because by noon I'm a free bird for the rest of the Saturday.
That's fair. Yeah. That's
you
fair.
know. But I'm also, as my wife will tell you, I'm all about the pregame stuff on the radio, the game, and then I like to do the postgame stuff, and then the sound off on WHO. I love to listen to that. Um, okay, now they're telling me that Paul could come on the show tomorrow, but we've already started it, so that's okay. We went on the basis that Paul wasn't going to join us today, and that Jason was, and I asked him if he was okay if I brought you on, and he said, "Yeah, no problem." And here we are, just you and me.
Perfect.
And so, all right. Then I got Michigan State at number 3 in the East at 6-3. No, actually, I don't. I did that wrong. I have Penn State at 7-2.
That's what I was
I
gonna
don't know
say.
if they're going to be that good, but Michigan State next at 6-3, and I don't think it even matters for the last 3 because the last 3 are pitiful.
Yeah, Rutgers and Maryland. That was just. I mean, I understood the TV deal of it, but what's also funny about that, Dean, is that like nobody cares about football on the East Coast.
Right.
One of my best friend from high school lives out in New York now. I married a girl from Queens, and when I was out there for the wedding about 2-3 years ago, I think maybe 4, she had never seen a college football game. And like it was a Saturday out there in the fall they got married, and you turn on the TV and it's lacrosse, field hockey, soccer. So I understood the market aspect of it, but you know, they don't do anything. I mean, the East Coast is basketball. I mean, Maryland was a huge get for basketball,
Mm-hmm.
but it's football like Rutgers. Yeah, I mean I agree with you. Rutgers and Maryland are
Yeah, we don't understand. We don't understand the Big Ten's thinking on this, but they got them, and I honestly thought Maryland would be better in football than they turned out to be. I never expected anything out of Rutgers. basketball wise, I thought, yeah, they could make a name for themselves, and they kind of are. They're not there yet, but they're getting there
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. But USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten. Just quickly, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I mean, you live out there, so you can tell me different. I know USC's got a pretty fervent fan base with the celebrities and whatnot, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it just seems to me that, well, two things. One, I just question long term how big West Coast football plays. Period. Like how they otherwise mesh with the Big Ten. Um, and two, I'm kind of traditional and old school in my thought processes of conferences and whatnot. And so, I like the Big Ten, everybody in the middle. I
Mm-hmm.
liked conferences being regional. I thought, that brings rivalries and things like that. I mean, I get the market aspect of it, and quite honestly, USC and UCLA make hell of a lot more sense to me than Maryland and Rutgers. From the LA market, and B, they got more talent in football, obviously.
Well, there's
And
discussion
yeah,
now going on that UCLA is now wants to back out of their
I heard
conference to
that.
join the
I heard
Big
that.
Ten.
Is that accurate?
They didn't like the idea of the 9 a.m. games. I think they thought that they would come out better, smelling a little better. Because they're used to those games at night.
Yeah. Well, realistically, you've only got three time slots: 11, 2:30, and
Mm-hmm.
7. I
Right.
mean, you got some off times there. The noons you mentioned, the 6 o'clock games, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's silly. Um, but I like UCLA as an addition for basketball more so than football.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it'll be interesting to see what happens further expansion. I know a guy that works fairly high up at the Big Ten Network in the media area, and he tells me that it. I mean, Big Ten wants to get to 20 now. I think, assuming that UCLA and USC stay, and that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and Notre Dame is obviously the big get, right? Everything depends on Notre Dame. As I understand it, if Notre Dame doesn't come, they're not going to expand. If Notre Dame comes, they're going to get to 20. And the schools that I hear are the most valued are Stanford for the academics and football, and then Kansas and Duke for basketball purposes. And because in the Big Ten, you got to be part of the AAU.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's you got to fit a very tight academic window, and then
Mm-hmm.
you got to bring. I think they're going to be very choosy now with their new deal.
I think
With it,
they'll make an exception because I don't believe Nebraska is a part of that.
well, they were originally, and then they got kicked out, and then they
Oh,
kept.
okay. All right.
Yeah, they
All right.
were when they joined the Big Ten. They were part of the AAU, and then
Oh,
they
okay.
got. But I think they might have otherwise been invited back. I
Yeah.
can't
Do
remember,
we?
but
I keep thinking, is the Big Ten really want Duke and Kansas to dominate? Bring them in for basketball. I mean, is that the only way they feel like we can make a Final Four? Because it's been a while since the Big Ten team has made a Final Four.
well, yeah, I think that. I mean, it's easy. My first thought too is, I mean, everyone thinks football, right? I mean, that's the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing. But yeah, basketball is a huge component.
Mm-hmm.
And you figure out like the revenue that basketball brings in versus the expense of basketball because you've only got 12 players versus 120 whatever with
Mm-hmm.
walk-ons and whatnot. Like pro rata, if you will, to figuring it out, basketball is more profitable for universities, and so you got Michigan State's good every year. Iowa's got an outlier team here and there. Michigan's got an outlier team here and there. Maryland, but otherwise, Kansas and Duke would bring a lot of value to the basketball program, I think, or the basketball aspect of the
They would.
conference.
They would. Not too much on the football sense, but
Not at all, but yeah,
you know, we could use a couple of more teams to kick around in football.
yeah. Actually, yeah, that'd be perfect.
No. Okay, and just kind of, I'm gonna get close to trying to wrap this up a little bit. Of course, I've got Iowa and Ohio State in a rematch in the championship game with Ohio State, obviously winning it. Like I said, I don't see anybody beating Ohio State, not this year, because I would put them number one ahead of Alabama if I knew more about Alabama. I know a lot more about Ohio State and don't understand why they're only number two.
No, I agree. You got to put Georgia up there too, but I think Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, any of those three as the top one would be a very, very
Yeah.
reasonable reasonable.
Yeah, and
to
I'm
say.
not sure who could be the fourth. The fourth place team right now. That might be open. That might be an open
The
discussion.
Hawks, baby, the Hawks.
There you go. Not going to
No,
get their 7-2 record though.
I agree with that. Realistically, I think maybe Texas has got a shot to get there. I think they're going to be decent.
What about
Um,
Texas A&M with all those transfers?
well, again, we'll see how they fit in, right?
Yeah.
And then they had a great recruiting class. They had what was it, 5 or 6 5-stars? So we'll see how they all fit in. But those are true freshmen, so we'll see if they play or not. But
Right.
a lot of parity, Dean. It'll be fun to watch this year.
Yeah, it should be. Gonna show this again. Sorry, Terry. We're doing the best we can under the circumstances. I'm not sure what happened, but we'll get an explanation later. There you go, Terry. Go to Terry's Senses. And that's the website. Punch it in exactly like you see it. I'll put it in the comments and description for you guys so you guys can have a link to it. Just go check out her website at least and see what she's got to offer. She's got quite a bit of stuff up there. And I didn't know Sensi goes into cleaning products too. So, but anyhow, this has been fun. I wish the others could have been a part of this, and we'll try to get out of here and move on, I guess. And I'll get this uploaded later. And you got any closing thoughts?
No, I'm just excited to get to fall here in the Midwest. The temperature's starting to change. We had some pretty hot summers. I'm sure it's still hot out there, but
Yeah.
At night now we need the sweatshirt and the sweatpants, and so just psyched for football, man.
Lucky
so,
you.
yeah.
Lucky
Yeah.
you. Here in Bakersfield, I think since May we've had maybe 2 or 3 days below 100, and those days were like 98.
Yeah.
I mean, my son-in-law was over here the other night, and his first thing was, he goes, "Is it ever going to get below 100 again?"
Yeah. What is today? I don't know when this will post. What is today? Today is what's the date? So it's
Today is
22nd, Monday, August 22nd. It's going to be, looks like high 82 today here. So that's about perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Watch this. Alexa, what's the high in Bakersfield today?
Today, expect a high of 103 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
So yeah, that's been our norm lately.
I get it.
But yeah, I can't wait for it to cool down a little bit. Oh, before we leave, I did want to run what your predictions are on the Northwestern Nebraska game and Wyoming and Illinois. What do you think?
Well, let's start with the latter. I think Illinois donkey stomps Wyoming. Wyoming hasn't had much since they had that Allen kid at quarterback and Chase Brick, that running back at Illinois. Just a Brett Bielema offense. I think they're just going to ground Wyoming. I just think they're going to ground them down. So if I had to go with the score, I don't think it's going to be a super high scoring game, just because I think it's going to be a ground and pound Brett Bielema game. And Illinois is not exactly deep at quarterback or receiver either. So if I had spitball that one, I'd put it at Illinois 35, Wyoming 17, somewhere in that nature.
That's about where I would put that too. Yeah.
Nebraska versus Northwestern, as much as it pains me to say, I think Nebraska wins that game, in part because Northwestern is just not very good, nor will they be. Not that Nebraska is, but I think they're better than Northwestern. Two, the one thing I will credit Husker fans with is that they travel well. So I know it's a pretty fervent fan base, and there's a lot of Scarlet and Cream headed over there to Ireland. And so that I think they're going to travel well. The other thing that's kind of the outlier here is there was a scathing article written by this Irish author over there for one of the periodicals, just ripping Nebraska, saying stuff about like Lawrence Phillips and his criminal past back, 25 years ago, saying things about Mark Whipple. I don't know if you remember, I think it was either last year or 2 years ago, but unfortunately he used the word rape to refer to me back having a guy hanging on him, and he got suspended for that. And so this Irish author really went to great lengths to like rip Nebraska. And just like I tell all my Nebraska buddies, wins that happened 25 years ago, they're not relevant anymore. Nor are the skeletons in the closet that happened 25 years ago, because every program has those. And so, like, I think that there's going to be an extra added layer, because this author also took a knock at Scott Frost. Because when that whole Lawrence Phillips episode happened, and he did some bad things to his girlfriend, Scott Frost was dating that woman at the time. She didn't do anything to defend her, because Lawrence Phillips was enraged. And so this author goes to great lengths to point that out. So I think there's an extra layer of motivation there, Dean, for Nebraska to go over there. So if I had to predict that one, I still don't think Nebraska's offense is that great. I think they got too many moving parts, but I bet they win that game 28-14.
That sounds fair. I would agree with you on that one.
Yeah,
on that note, I'm going to get out of here. Guys, I got to get back together with everybody and see when we're going to come back live again. I have a procedure on Friday morning, so we'll see if I'm able to.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah. They're looking for prostate cancer, but that's a different story for another day.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Dean. I'd be glad to come back anytime you welcome me, and go Hawks.
Yeah, this was fun. I'm glad we did it. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Bye.